Welcome to CareHero podcast, where our mission is to educate, motivate, and inspire nurses and other healthcare professionals. In each episode, we explore how our guests successfully advance their careers and improve the lives of their patients and residents. We share practical tips and success stories to illustrate how you, our care heroes, can grow in your own personal and professional lives.
Welcome back, Care Heroes. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of CareHero Podcast. I'm your co-host, Gerard Hernandez.
And I'm Martin Hoy. Today's guest is a shining example of a committed healthcare professional, recording her interview live from a parking lot of a COVID vaccination site following her shift.
Yes, sir. She's dedicated and on the go. Folks, we have Lisa Chambers, an experienced clinical educator and registered nurse from Lake Forest, California.
That's right, Gerard. She's a true professional in every sense of the word, with over 25 years of healthcare experience and currently at CHOC, Children's Hospital of Orange County, a pediatric healthcare network in Orange County, California.
And Lisa has an amazing story and golden bits of knowledge to share, including the importance of furthering education and pursuing certifications in your field, the significance of empowering others and helping them advance and grow, to self-reflect and not let your insecurities hold you back, to not be afraid to ask for help, the importance of approaching problems with solutions, and to always know your purpose and be confident when doors of opportunity open for you.
Sounds awesome, Gerard. Let's get this show on the road.
Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're excited to have you. And we always start off the show with this question. All of our care heroes, including yourself, are superheroes. But if you had to choose one superpower, what would that be and why?
Well, I really am a big fan of Mary Poppins, so I appreciated the fact that she could get anything out of her satchel. And so I think that it's something I aspire to, is to always have something in store to surprise people and make their day.
Oh, wow. Magic satchel. That's an amazing, so not just a superpower, but also just like a tool bag.
Yeah, kind of. Well, I think her superpower is be able to reach in there and find what she wanted, right? So.
Oh, yeah, and at the right time, of course.
Yeah.
So, Lisa, you're a very experienced and accomplished healthcare professional with over 25 years of experience. Could you tell us a little bit about your life story, your background, and how you got into healthcare?
Yeah, I kind of stumbled into it a little bit, although I guess it's not surprising. My mom had a brain tumor when I was in the third grade, and it ended up being benign, but it was about the size of a grapefruit. And so her life was in jeopardy for a little bit during my third grade year. We had to live with my grandparents, and I think that made an impression on me, but I didn't realize how much until my stepmom and my dad, they encouraged me I should just go to nursing school because I really, I was smart enough to do it and I should just go ahead and try. And my first nursing class, they talked about advocacy and patient care and teaching. And it was like all the stuff I love to do. And I thought, gosh, that really does sound exciting. I think I really enjoy that. That's kind of how it started. Back, it was 1989, I graduated high school. So I went right to college.
Amazing. Yeah. And so you're currently working in a pediatric trauma center.
Yeah.
Could you tell us exactly what you do?
Yeah, I work at CHOC Children's Hospital in Orange County, California, in Orange. And we service a very large pediatric community there. This hospital, up until COVID, was about the fourth busiest pediatric hospital in the U.S. as far as Children's Hospital Association. And I'm the educator. I work in the emergency department, help to encourage best practice and help the team there to continue to develop professionally.
Got it. And how many folks do you work with in the ER?
There's about 180.
Wow. Big job making sure that they stay up to date and current with the latest practices.
Yeah, we all work together as a great team. It's a joy to be able to work with them.
So we're going to dive into your time at CHOC and your nurse educator role there. But you also spent some time in Dhaka, Bangladesh as a nurse educator, correct?
Yeah, my husband was going to go. We were going back overseas. And we'd been missionaries in the past and got an interview with a church in Dhaka. And at the time, the head of the governing board there was the head of the cholera hospital, International Center of Diarrheal Disease Research. And when he interviewed my husband and knew I was a nurse, he was getting a twofer. So he brought me over to the hospital so I could see what was going on. It was during the SARS pandemic or epidemic at the time in Asia, and introduced me some of the nurses and was really excited for me to become the educational consultant. So I did that. And we came back about 6 months later, and I became the educational consultant from 2010 to 2012. That hospital sees 350 to 1,000 patients a day, depending on cholera season. And I got to educate the nurses, about 150 there. And we worked on best practice. We developed a hypoglycemia protocol and worked on centralized resuscitation stations, focused on Dhaka form of ACLS, PALS, and BLS, and really had a good time developing best practice with those nurse managers. Those wards, the nurses have 50 patients to one nurse. So it's quite a bit different from America. But when you see them hustle in that emergency department, it just brings you such joy to see them trying to do their very best by each patient.
Yeah, that must have been quite an amazing experience, and that international experience, taking that knowledge you did as a nurse educator there and bringing it back to Orange County.
Yeah, it was kind of funny how that happened. When we got back to the United States, I started my master's in nursing education because when I joined at ICDDRB, that was really the confluence of my love and my passion for education. I had homeschooled my kids for 8 years and nursing, like all joined together there in Dhaka. Came back to the US, got my master's in nursing education, and my daughter says, "You got to go work for the Bear." So I applied at Chalk a little over 5 years ago and got a job there. I started working bedside, and then the educator was leaving and said, "If you want my job, you've got to apply for it." And I said to my friend Cheryl, I said, "Cheryl, the day that you said you were leaving and the job posted, I applied for it, because we were just good friends, and she wanted me to have the job." So it was really exciting when I got it.
Amazing. And Lisa, so what does a typical day look like for you?
So I tend to get up between 4:30 and 5 o'clock, start the day, just being really thankful for my day, thankful for my family, get ready to go to work, grab my power shake and a lunch and hit in the car and go drive over. It's about a 15-minute drive. Get to the hospital. I like to check on the night shift. So I check on my night shift people, see how they're doing, see if there's any questions they had. Maybe there's a piece of new equipment we're trying to in-service them on. So make sure everybody got in-serviced. And if they didn't, I'll do catch-up work and try to walk around, make sure there's nothing I can do to help them with anything that might be going on at the minute. And then 7 o'clock rolls in and I'll get to see the day shift and participate in huddle. If there's any announcements or changes or things that are going on, like computer updates, I can inform them of that. Then I'll get to go to my office and check on any email I might have missed. So respond to those things. Probably be a morning meeting of some type that I need to participate in, which is always fun. You never know, there's always a different adventure, policies or procedures or things to talk about, discuss, and try to improve on what's happening at the hospital. And it's exciting because it's just such a great team there. It's a magnet hospital and just really cutting edge in so many ways. And so it's really a joy to be able to think we're all there working for the kids. The theme at the hospital is being defenders of childhood, and it's just so neat to see that lived out. After a couple meetings, I'll go back out and check on the departments, usually by 11 o'clock. That's another huddle for new staff that are coming in. And as those staff come in, it's nice to be part of their huddle too and check on them and see if there's anything else I can do there. Head probably back into the office. Maybe I'm planning some curriculum. I have a couple of pieces of curriculum we're planning right now. So I'll spend an hour or so planning that. Then, I'm also help to run the EMPC and TNCC program at our hospital. So I'll probably answer some emails and make sure the class is ready for that. Then it'll be 2 o'clock before I know it. And that's another huddle with the new staff coming on. We have tiered staffing. So the staffing grows throughout the day to meet the demands in the department. And that means that we have more staff coming on too, go to another huddle and be able to listen and hear what's going on. We always end our huddle with a joke, so that's good. Then we'll see if there's anybody who has any questions. I tend to round at that time because it's when the bulk of our staff is present. And then I really go through the department and see if there's anything else I can do that would be helpful. And occasionally there'll be a call overhead for like an ED response, and I'll go see what that's all about and see if I can support. My role is mainly support staff and professional development. And so somebody will want me to go get them a certification book. So I'll go get a certification book because somebody's going to start studying for the certification. We're about at 50% rate of them all being certified, either with CPEN, certified pediatric emergency nurse, or certified emergency nurse, or it's the TCRN, so trauma certified registered nurse.
Great. And as a nurse educator at your facility, do you help your coworkers with those preparations?
I do help from the side. I don't myself teach the classes. We do sometimes hire in someone to come in and teach an exam course. And really, some of it is on the nurses. Do they learn best from attending a course, or would they learn better from flashcards and study? So the nurses, if they want to review a course, we actually have a nurse in our department, one of our trauma nurses, Tamara Elliott, studied so that she could teach the trauma certified registered nurse class. And it's so exciting to see her professionally develop. My role I don't have as much levity to study and be able to teach that big of a class. I do teach the TNCC class and the ENPC class, and I'm a faculty member for that. I build classes that are sometimes for just RED, and sometimes I help with a class that's for more than RED. And that's just the nature of being an educator at our hospital.
Wow, that's a lot. I mean, you're not only are you training your own staff, but you're also facilitating and making sure that they have the ability to take their education into their own hands.
So, of course, you're at the Children's Hospital of Orange County. Personally, my wife and I had our first child just 5 months ago. So for the first time, I'm experiencing these things as a parent. And, as much as I loved kids before, I just see things in a whole different light, even more so now, right? So for you, working with children every day, like in your nurse educator role even, what do you love most about your role there?
Oh, I really love to see the staff grow and get it, grabbing a hold of their skills. I teach an ultrasound IV class. And so when they talk to me about, Lisa, now I'm actually really good at it, like before I was wobbly and now I've got it, and it's just so nice to know that they have that to offer every patient. If they needed to use an ultrasound IV, they could do it. They could put in an ultrasound IV and that would be maybe less pokes for that child. And it's just so nice that way to be able to empower them and make them feel strengthened and equipped to do their job even better. And so that's a great joy. I mean, in a way, I guess in my own mind, I feel like then I'm able to impact all the patients, and that feels good. I really love the staff. I appreciate their hard work. And it's hard to find somebody who loves to work with children that isn't fun and easy to get along with. So it's just a real joy.
Absolutely. We can hear it from just how you're speaking about this, how much joy you must have in your work and the staff that works with you.
It's true.
And what's the biggest challenge you have with your current role, and how do you overcome it?
Oh, I think in life, when you observe systems, you look for, systems theory, and you kind of look for safety gaps and anything you can do that would be better to improve it. So bigger challenges are kind of more you look for a gap and you try to figure out, well, how can we best fill that? What's going to be the best way to make this the best it could possibly be? And so I think it's getting the right people together, making sure the right conversations happen, facilitating that. And so those are fun challenges for me, but I think those are bigger challenges. And then I guess on the other end of that, when somebody is kind of stuck, when you feel like, gosh, they really have it in them, they really could get to the next level. How do I help unstick them? What is it that's holding them back? Why aren't they confident that they could make it to the next level? And so it's unlocking that mystery inside of each person to give them the empowerment to believe that they actually could do that certification. They actually could learn that skill. And the only thing holding them back is them. And so if I remove all the barriers and make sure that the only thing holding them back is them, they have all the supplies, they can even practice it when I'm not looking. So we have a cart in the department that's in this little area, alcove, and it's called Lisa's Learning Cart. And you can go there. Nobody's going to know you're over there because you can hardly see that area from any of the passageways. And you could go over there and you could practice your port access. You could practice your chest tube setup if that's what you wanted to do. And so whatever you need, I try to remove all the barriers so that I'm not in the way even. right? If they're intimidated because I'm there, I don't want to be the person that causes them not to be able to learn.
And so, that's a good point, for folks that kind of feel stuck. If you were talking to them, let's say you were talking to them right now, what would you tell them?
Gosh, I think first I'd want to kind of see if they notice that, right? So, how are you doing? I wondered, how you've been feeling lately. Is everything going on okay at home? I want to look at your professional development plan and where you're at. Let's look at our roadmap. I have a little roadmap and I'll walk them down that. And I say, okay, you've been here a year and these are the things on our list. Let's see where you're at and kind of walk them through and see if they notice. But usually people that are stuck, they've been there several years, right? So I'll walk them through and I'll say, okay, you've been here a few years. What things on this list would you still like to accomplish, right? So kind of seeing what they were interested in and then moving them towards it. And if they just came to me and said, Lisa, I'm really stuck. I've had a nurse come to me and say, I'm just really still nervous about ports. I've been here a long time. It just makes me so nervous. And talking them down and saying, I understand you're nervous. Why don't we do this? Why don't we ask that you get the next one and that we'll do it together? Let's try to work on this together. And so it's getting the person to recognize they're at that point and being willing to work on that one skill that threatens them. We did establish, and we're working on a program on night shift to establish mentorship, peer mentorship, and to work on things that are our goals or things that we'd like to accomplish that are SMART goals in the next 6 months. And so one of our nurses, she said, my goal is to work on traction. And she said, I just didn't understand it. And I've been a nurse a long time and I should get it, and it's this traction bed. We don't pull it out that often. When they have somebody with a traumatic femur fracture, though, then you need it. And so it's a lot of pulleys and ropes and weights and things to work on to make sure the bones straighten out nicely. And in a jiffy, you need to set that up nicely. So anyway, long story short, she tackled it. So I think it's really getting people to own and name what their goal is. And once they've got that in mind, then it's a stepwise process of accomplishing it, right?
It's great that they also have you as a resource to help them with that. And not every facility has someone like you that has both the clinical experience and the interest in sort of being an educator. So this is fantastic for the folks at your facility.
So we know that now we've been speaking of how, you educate all your staff and those around you, but for yourself, how do you continue to learn to stay on top of things within your role? And we know maybe if you could speak about why you decided to go get your doctorate of nursing practice that you're going through presently.
Well, gosh, I really try to listen to at least a webinar a week on something that I'm interested in, cutting edge. And that's not just like during work, I'll listen while I'm working on something else, either filing or clicking people through as far as their skill validations, making sure they're all validated and taken care of. I also, read journal articles and look through a few, especially Emergency Nurses Association. I read their journal regularly. I make sure that I stay up to date on things that are going on. Pediatrics in Review is a nice journal. There's a couple of things that are really nice to read through. But getting my doctorate was a decision that was kind of fun. My friend Cheryl, who's now the manager, who had been the educator in the past, called me and she said, Lisa, she was in Florida. She said, West Coast University is opening up their doctorate program. Do you want to do it with me? And I said, yes, let's do it. So we're both doing the doctorate together. She's a little ahead of me because she had gone to West Coast before, but it's just really neat to see the opportunities of learning and how it kind of frames different stages of your life. And for me right now, it's just working on that best practice, research, how to hone in on implementing what's best practice and doing things that are a little more cutting edge and continuing to try to be as innovative as possible. So it's just really fun, I think, to continue to pursue learning. And I think it's supposed to be how it is, because how can I, in all authenticity, be a good educator if I'm not continuing to work on my own education as well?
Certainly, that absolutely makes sense. No matter what point you are in your career, looking for opportunities to further your learning, and it's just an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
And it's great to also have an accountability partner in your friend Cheryl. I mean, stuff like this really helps when you have someone that you know and that you like doing it with you.
So key. So key.
So how did you get to where you are today? And especially talk maybe about factors other than education.
I have a great family, really, really neat family, strong support, 4 kids, 2 dogs, and 1 husband so far. We're married 25 years in August. It's just really, I'm thankful for Fred and his kindness, and he lets me continue to study. He's actually pursuing his own doctorate, so we're a little bit neck and neck. Let's see. So they're great. I have faith in God. I feel like God has really brought me and opened doors. That door in Dhaka, becoming the educational consultant, that was beyond my wildest dreams. To be able to work with thousands and thousands of patients pouring through the doors and to help that, 150 nurses who were taking care of them and, ride home on a rickshaw through the slum and see kids playing and smell the spices. I mean, what a dream. It was beautiful and wonderful. The other things I think that have made me, I guess, buoyant in this pandemic time, I think, is just the stabilizing factor of knowing that I'm here on purpose. And this time, the way that we do things is so important for our own survival. In a sense, we've got to beat the virus and its mutations. So let's get vaccinated and let's make sure we take care of doing everything that needs to happen so that we can make this world a better place again.
Yeah, you really seem to have found your purpose in all this. Going from purpose from your family, purpose from your work, your missionary work, and sort of in the last year, purpose from COVID and how it sort of brought us all together in this sort of unfortunate scenario.
Yeah, I would say, I really don't feel like I'm a care hero as much as nurses who work in adult emergency departments or who work in under-resourced hospitals. I had nurses, I'm onboarded this week from an under-resourced hospital, and they said, you mean we don't have to wear our own masks from home? So my heart aches because I think there are areas of our country that really do need to take a hard look at how they're using funds and how they're supplying the staff and what that takes a toll on emotionally and mentally on these people who are the care heroes, the bedside workers who need the most support.
Well, that's great to say, but I can speak for Gerard and I when I say we think you are a care hero, and we appreciate everything that you do. We thank you for your service.
I'm glad to do it. The staff makes it so easy, so it's really a blessing.
And absolutely. And like, as you mentioned earlier, you touched on a little bit, was that, at least even if you're sometimes not directly impacting the patients, but your work is through the other staff that you're educating, if you're not doing education at the bedside directly at that point, right? So you're definitely touching the lives of many patients.
I hope so. That's what keeps me going. That's for sure.
And so speaking of this work, of course, you're working with a lot of people, you're educating them. So communication is very key to your success. But on the other side, for staff members and nurses, what's the best way that they can communicate with management? Do you have any tips for them?
Sure. I think for me, when staff, they want to talk to management, I think there's several things they need to think about. I really, I think number one is you have to consider who your audience is and know your management pretty well. How receptive are they? I think that the importance of what you're communicating, are you living it out, what you're looking for? Are you going to gain an audience by how you perform? Our management at our department is they're just amazingly receptive. The staff in every huddle are able to say what they would like to say. And it's just beautiful to see how the management responds. Little tweaks, little changes continuously with COVID to make things as best as we possibly can. But when you're in a situation where you're trying to approach management and you're not sure, I think you need to weigh your own commitment to making the change. Are you willing to be part of the solution? Do you...
Like doing your homework?
Yeah. Have you done your homework and looked for articles that would give you the data on why this change would be good? Have you researched the topic to make sure that this is best practice? Because you might have an idea and it's really not best practice. It's an idea, but it's not the right way to do it. We tell staff, if you have an idea, bring it by us and we'll make some changes. Of course, we have bring us a journal article to help us so we know, how it was implemented somewhere else. Or if it hasn't been implemented, maybe we could do research on it and actually implement something new. And it would be really cool to have it happen here. You really want to think about, too, your own attitude and how you approach management. Because if you approach management and you're kind of miffed or upset, your emotional energy will usually not help you communicate really well. And so you want to be careful to communicate with a right attitude. And I always tell staff, we have many of our techs some of them want to be nurses. And if they ask me, I'll say, your job interview is how you perform right now. Really, not that they wouldn't get another interview, but just that, we are observing your work ethic. How you communicate is how you work. That's one way we communicate. Another way we communicate is in how we are willing to pick up the slack. I mean, in an emergency department, things can whir pretty quick and we can get a lot of patients coming in pretty fast. And so being able to really kick it and move and do what needs to be done in a safe and effective manner really speaks volumes to somebody's character. So right attitude, or right actions, or right motives all matter when you come up with an idea and want to bring change to management. It shouldn't be about you. It should be about the patient. And if it isn't about the patient, you have to start thinking, well, why do I want to make this change? Is it going to benefit the patient or is it just benefiting me? And then I need to be careful because then I have too much ownership of it. It really should be best practice. And then I won't get offended myself.
That's some fantastic tips there. Thank you for sharing that.
And we also want to congratulate you on your 2020 Distinguished Certified Pediatric Emergency Nurse Award that you received from the Board of Certification for Emergency Nursing. So for our CareHero listeners who may not know, what is a CPEN certification and what unique ways does it contribute to patient care?
Yeah, Certified Pediatric Emergency Nurse is a nurse who's received their CPEN. And that is a nurse who has worked in pediatric emergency or just even in a regular emergency department and has studied pediatrics so that they could be ready to pass that exam. And what it means is they've studied long and hard enough in order to pass this exam. And I believe it's 175 questions and 150 of them are what's scored. They have 25 that are they're checking to see how they score and how well they'll be received. And you have to score high enough to pass. Otherwise, you have to pay again to recert and try again. But what that means is that the patients are receiving care from a nurse who has studied hard enough to pass that exam, which means they have a bigger knowledge base than a nurse who isn't certified.
Right. And, having you there to help with, and as we talked about earlier, facilitating some of this stuff is fantastic.
Yeah, it's really fun. That award was very kind. My coworker, Kent and Cheryl, nominated me for that. And that was very kind of them as well.
You must have had so many, but could you identify your most inspiring moment that you've had in your career?
Yes, I really can. In Dhaka, I worked with a woman named Ali Movis, and we built a resuscitation curriculum. And Ali was from Australia with AusAid. And she didn't get to see it all to fruition. Her time ended and I was still there. But we educated several of the nurses and the nurse fellows, and they all learned CPR and did it quite well. And a child came in and they resuscitated her and they gave her her fluids, and she had cholera, and they got her to recover. And I wasn't there when it happened. And so it was a Monday and I came into the hospital and, "Madam, come over here, madam, look, this girl, she was dead and now she's alive." And one of my students, he was so excited that by doing CPR and giving her fluids, she had actually made it. And it was like this light bulb that had gone into his head. And you could see that because he had done what I taught him to do and it worked, he was like, "Look." And I think for me, that just inspired me to keep going. Like, it's not easy sometimes. And there are challenging days for everybody. and that would include the educators among us. And so when a student grabs hold and is themselves inspired to do more and be better, that inspires us. And so it was really cool to have that feeling of it made a difference. It made a huge difference for that girl, and it made a difference for my student. And it was just really cool. It was just the best. Yeah.
So Lisa, your career, you've had a lot of great things and great moments, and people also have helped you along the way. You have great colleagues. So what is the best piece of advice that you've ever been given?
Oh, I think the best piece of advice somebody ever gave me was, if a door opens, go for it. And in turn, I tell my kids to not close doors on themselves. So it's, if a door opens, go ahead and go for it. I pray that God would open doors for me and that I would know the right ones to walk through. And when doors open, it's good to know that you feel very confident that that's which way you should go, and knowing your purpose, knowing your why. It's like Simon Sinek talks about, know your why. It's very important in order to move forward and be effective and actually feel fulfilled.
Yes, especially when you know your why and that door opens, it's automatic that you're going to step through it because you understand already.
Yeah.
And Lisa, say you get to travel to the future. What does the future of nursing look like to you?
Oh, well, actually, I was even talking about this today with one of our nurses. I wonder in the future, do nurses end up having scribes like doctors do, where you have somebody who's taking notes for you because you're providing the care, and that your time is so valuable that it would be important that you just continue to provide care while you have somebody documenting the care that you're providing and you're dictating it. Is that where we need to go so that the nurses can be more hands-on with the patients and be more effectual? I don't know. We've done that for some professions, especially like emergency doctors. They have their scribes, but do we need to be more hands-on that way? I don't know. I think that computers can never replace the care that nurses give. And so the value of the nurse is super important. The year of the nurse got extended into 2021. So I'm really excited about this, even just this year being continued to be the year of the nurse. It was Florence Nightingale's big birthday, so we get to continue to have that. So, beyond that, I think that nursing as the doctorate becomes more of the standard for our nurse practitioners as well. You're going to see the nurses assume more private practice. And several states already have approved this. So nurses are functioning independently. Nurse practitioners are functioning independently of physicians and contracting care that way a private physician would. And so it's pretty exciting, the future of nursing and all the opportunities that will be afforded nurses because of that. And our profession and how it's looked at is just really neat. I'm excited. I'm glad for how we'll be able to partner more and more as peers, as partners with physicians. So it's just a different world.
This has been such an informative and really exciting podcast interview, Lisa. So do you have any final thoughts or advice for our Care Heroes?
Oh, I think it's be kind to yourself. You take care of people, and maybe their worst day, maybe their best day, but be careful to be kind to yourself so you have something to give, and make sure that you are honoring and respecting each other as colleagues. I teach a course called Team Steps, and there's a lot in there about how we conduct our conversations and making sure there's closed loop communications. Every handoff matters. Every time we have a conversation with patients and families, being and having our best attitude and making sure we are presenting ourselves in a way that is the best we can be at that time for that family. So I think that's trying to live without regrets and making sure that we model best practice everywhere we go.
Such a fantastic episode with Lisa. It's really interesting how her time as a missionary in Bangladesh 8 years ago set herself up for her current role as a nurse educator at CHOC.
Yeah, it's such a great example of seizing an opportunity when it presents itself.
That's right. Now it's time for the handover.
All right, Care Heroes, here are our top takeaways from this episode. Don't be scared to further your education and pursue certifications in your field. You will not only significantly help yourself, but also those in your care. Always help others when you can. If you're able to empower others and help them advance and grow, you can make all the difference. Take time to self-reflect. Sometimes the only thing that's holding you back from moving forward is you. Remove those barriers and set yourself free. Don't be afraid to ask for help. There's nothing wrong with seeking advice and finding ways to become better. Approach problems with solutions and do your homework. Always come to the table with a positive attitude and ways to help the situation. Last but not least, always know your purpose. That way, when a door of opportunity opens, you can be confident to walk through and pursue it.
Terrific handover, Martin. We also want to thank our CareHeroes for listening, and don't forget to rate our podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you want a shout out on a future episode, just visit careheropodcast.com. Go to the Contact Us page and submit your name, role, and location for a shout out on a future episode.
That's right, Gerard. Now it's time for some shout outs. We want to give a shout out to Anne, certified nursing assistant from Hartford, Connecticut. Paige, registered nurse from Dallas, Texas. Delilah, nurse manager from Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, CareHeroes, that wraps it up for this episode. Thanks again for joining us on the show. We'll be back soon. Same CareHero time, same CareHero channel.
Thanks for listening to CareHero Podcast. Don't miss out on future content. Hit subscribe and rate us in your favorite podcast app. Also, remember to visit us at careheropodcast.com to send us your feedback, sign up for the newsletter, and nominate a CareHero to be interviewed on a future episode.